I want to sort of get to the other side of being a DP. Of course, there's the lighting and the cameras and all that business, but what about dealing with the people on the crew and to get your vision on film or digitally? Did that help you, having that psychology degree, to work with? I think,
I kid a lot that it helped. I think I think we have to be people persons. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to be the mediators, and we're working with our 3 departments in a very intimate level that know what we're going for, and we stand up for them as well, the camera, electric, and grip departments. And then we're constantly being there as the the partner for the director, while certain producers might be trying to compromise his or her vision. So we have to also come in on time and on budget, and we always have the forces over our shoulders looking at our
there's the politics I didn't mention, but there's that to balance as well, right?
No, it's just we're managing people.
See, that was never discussed in film school when I was there. And I think that's why I would like to talk about it here, because I think a lot of the people watching have no clue about those issues.
But frequently in film school, I know in my experience, my supposed teachers had not experienced it because they weren't good enough. Yeah. Yeah. They actually hadn't
experienced it.
They were academic teachers, perhaps. They
couldn't speak to it, right?
But also in those days, director was, even though we were in America, we had more of the auteur power, like Europeans, and so now it's a whole other ballgame. It's all about the product, and the money. And,
I think it's always been about money.
Yes, but
it was more helpful to David Lean that email didn't exist and you couldn't put up a satellite. And then when Sam Spiegel wanted to shut down production, he just didn't get the message for a month. That was great. I mean, our job beyond lighting or design or camera movements, it's to be a sounding board, I think, with the director to help. And sometimes you're far more experienced than the director you're working for, and he's looking to that experience to help him get what he wants in his head. He just doesn't know how to get there.
But now with this technology, it seems like there's more directing by committee or lighting by committee, just because they can almost be watching you as you.
But then,
so there's new ways that you have to deal with that. Although, like you said, your personality. It's almost like you have to have the right personality to start with, so that.
And it's not necessarily the personality of being nice.
True.
That isn't the question. The personality is one of control.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And to make people understand, you're not trying to be a bastard about controlling this thing. This isn't your ego. This is a means by which, if you start the scene in that direction, you're out of luck by 11 o'clock because the sun's going to break through. It's not that it'll make the actors look ugly. There won't be any continuity in the scene.
It is what it is. This is what I know.
And there isn't really time to run a film school when you're shooting. I mean, there's got to be that you're hired to be
on-the-job training,
good, fast,
cost money.
Good, fast, cheap, big. Yeah. But they want all three.
Right.
But
I don't think that. I'm finding too much lighting by committee. I'm still feeling like once we get on set,
it's everything before.
It's exactly what's before, right? Because there's no time when we're on set, we're just going.
True. Maybe different on spots though, with agency people over your shoulder.
Yeah.
But that's always been the case.
It has, right?
It's the ice skating. You look to the monitors.
Well, then once video assist came, I mean.
Yeah, but that's a different product. That's advertising, and that's completely.
But now you said you don't do spots or many spots, right? What about you two?
I've done thousands. I mean, not thousands, but I've done hundreds and hundreds. But not recently.
Not recently, right? Before?
Yeah, I mean, I did it.
Before video assist, I mean?
No, we've always had that. I can recall video assist, but
the film video assist
is so poor.
No, I know, right? But you still had a guy over your shoulder in essence. But anyway, I don't want to belabor that. How do you work with maybe, I hate to say problem director, but how do you get what you want if they have sort of a different vision? Or is it even not at that point, because in pre-pro you've sort of figured that out.
Yeah, it didn't happen once we solidified the process. Those individuals were never hired again. And usually it was apparent to everybody. It wasn't just my problem. And more particularly, it was a financial, or we were going over. I mean, that's the first thing that happens is director doesn't have a clear vision of what he wants to do, and you're all standing there while they figure out why they, and then all of a sudden someone's looking at their watch and say, well, we're behind by 2 pages. And you're never going to catch up unless you make some radical decisions right now. And of course, it's my job to make sure that we get through the day, because I have a reputation to continue to uphold. And you have to be quite forceful sometimes. And certainly many people find themselves in charge of television as directors without very much experience at all. They may have come from the writing background where it's very easy to sit and type. The battle comes over them through the valley, and it's like an eighth of a page, and they just have no understanding. I mean, just a simple car stunt, and suddenly you're involved in safety and issues of magnitude that complexly define, you know, just why is this camera, I want this camera here, but it can't be there because the car is potentially going to roll in this direction. We have no buffer. We can push another car in front of it. Do you mind? Okay, fine. So let's push another car in front, and then we'll. I mean, most of the stuff gets worked out, but actually at the television level, we were doing a lot of juggling too. Right. The cinematographer's job on an episodic like ours had more to do with having an extraordinarily fine crew that you trusted, because they would be going ahead and doing pre-rigging and so on based on long knowledge of what you expect to find. It's a lot easier to switch lights off than it is to put them up.
It's much quicker.
They would basically pepper any location we were going to, and I would be confident, knowing when I got there, that I would have enough variety and choices to make it play for what the director might make change. Biggest problem was, of course, Kiefer, very much as an executive producer, would read the script on the morning of, come to set, and after 2 hours there was a strenuous blocking, and we'd throw everything out that was being planned, and it would be a complete reverse, a master going in the other direction, and you really have to know how to do it.
And the documentary experience helps.
Well, and also having a tremendous crew, you know.
Right.
Having great crews, but also having great attitude. Right. I mean, change is to be welcomed. Yeah. Change is...
Attitude is huge.
Yeah, attitude is a huge
a new
thing.
challenge instead of a, oh my God.
You know. Of course, it can be difficult if you spent a lot of time and money and you become invested in a look, and then the director really does do a 180.
We had a classic little one that in a terrorist safe house, and we needed to shoot all of the exteriors and then coming through the hallways. Well, of course, we got there, and the guy across this 4th floor building in the stairwell wouldn't let us have his window to put an 18K in to simulate the same kind of light. I had patterns on the wall, so my grips, I said, okay guys, what can we do? They got out rock and roll truss, they slung it across between the 2 buildings, and they trussed, lowered an 18K Alpha down on a block and pulley rig and steered it with ropes and put it right where I wanted it.
But with a good crew and the attitude you're talking about, they saw it as a challenge and just did it.
They love that.
They love it.
Right. Yeah, because otherwise it could probably be mundane.
Yeah.
It's more interesting, and it's more fun, and all you do if you resist change is create agony for everybody, but particularly for yourself. I mean, hopefully you can work with people. I love change when it's for the better. You know, when it's the change when it goes in the wrong way that is very painful. You know, that that happens, of course. You just got to think about the whole film, what the whole picture will be. So one scene isn't going to kill the film.
No.
Coppola.
But change also, just not just in working relationships, but you know, we keep abreast of the times. You know, as cinematographers, we test all the new equipment. I mean, that's what keeps it really interesting now. It's not just a couple of accessories or new lenses. Now it's new camera systems, and we need to keep up to date.
Up to a point, but there's a lot of it that's sort of, it's like noise. So there's this great 65mm lens that I'm very interested to use, but does it make that much difference compared to the 75? You know, does it really? Do you need to really make a big fuss about that? You can get lost in gadgets, you can get lost in all this noise. It becomes absolutely fascinating, and it's got nothing to do with the work. Very little.
Again, but it's if you're asked to shoot different formats, you know.
Well, something else that interests me, and I have no experience in, is working in other countries, how some of these issues might be different. And you know, the business is changing. I remember we talked a little bit before about here versus other countries.
Already in the television schedule, the people that have talked to me about jobs, they're not in this country anymore. They're in Australia, they're in Canada. Canada works the American system, Australia works the British system. So all of a sudden, and we shot in South Africa, and suddenly I have no grips anymore, as I know them in North America style. And we have a lot of day exteriors where I'm needing to put up big lights because it was inclement weather. But then the same electricians would also fly the butterflies, and I found that kind of challenging. That was, other than that, I love the fact that the Brits, if you put up a light, the electrician cuts the light, modifies it, and that's their baby. And whereas I'm used to a guy going up to put a pin in, it's a grip, he comes down, electric puts up a light, he comes down, and then the grip goes up again and black wraps and cuts the light. And this seems, but on the other hand, it's wonderful to have them flying balloons, or you know, we use clouds, which are fantastic helium balloons that we float in instead of butterflies. And but the grips take care of that. Meanwhile, I've got my electricians working with a couple of 18Ks bouncing off a 12-by. And there's simultaneous work going on. Under the British system, I don't know, it works perfectly on the stage, but I found it more challenging in South Africa, where we were mostly day exterior, because I needed the extra guys, you know, to take care of it.
And you get used to it.
Yes.
And then when you're trying to estimate how long something will take, it can be a rude awakening.
Right.
But even within our country, you know, I came out of the New York system, and the electricians do the reflectors, and the reflectors are done by the grip department. So if you're not even using lights, your electricians can be sitting around. And I usually use lights outside, you know, generally. But you know, I think that's a really good use of the electrics, to have them do the reflectors if you're using them, you know. So that was something I had to learn.
But it'll be different. It's different in France, and it's different in Italy, and it's different in England, and it's...
Camera-wise, it's almost identical now. I find it was amazing. Wonderful focus pullers, totally knew the gear. Panavision gear is pretty well universal, and Ariflex gear. And you can go anywhere on the planet now because of film schools and find people who are skilled and capable.
Good and dedicated assistants, and if you include them in all this, and they become happy, you know, and then you have a better...
That's human nature. It's a perfect tool to use,
You don't have to be cynical to make you happier too, you know, everything will work out fine.
Right.
I found that in television, that there were many, a show where the DP was quite dictatorial, or would do all his own operating essentially until he had to step back for the actual shot. But everything slowed down because the operators were standing around waiting for him to give up on the shot. They weren't involved. And then another class of DP who would talk through radio and try and define the shot and change the shot now and pan off and pan back. And I just said, well, this is crazy. I'm hiring these guys. And it's more of a British system to say, look, you guys are on your own here. Work with the director. I mean, I'm going to define for you where I'm going to put the lights. And but basically now, I mean, certainly we've evolved to the point where we watch a blocking and I say, that's kind of it as far as the camera placement is concerned, and they go to it, and then work with the gaffer and the grip and work the lighting out. But that's quite wonderful to have people with their own freedom to make framing decisions. And the idea, the director would often say, okay, you favored you on this to take, let's do a handoff, and I want to see, come off him. So the dialogue is playing. Here's the dialogue, and you're just doing this, and you're on the reaction, and those kinds of changes. But that's really something you work out with the director as well.
I mean, it gets back to the psychology of it. If you're empowering your crew, they're probably going to be more behind you, get better results, all that sort of thing.
Trust, you know.
I think that's one of the big things for people who suddenly find that they can shoot with an HDLSR camera. The whole concept that they are not alone. They can't confront making a story and telling a story by themselves very easily.
The
And
big shock is they need an assistant camera. They
You
need
cannot
focus.
keep it in focus.
That is the big
That's the first.
Where's my autofocus?
The first big shock.
And sound. I mean, you absolutely need a sound
then-
person. Yeah.
Then you need sound, and then everything becomes a group effort, not a singular effort.